Okay, looks like I'm live. Is everybody here that can see me? Raise your hand, jump in the chat, let me know you're here. Super excited to be here. There you go. Got those thumbs up. Look at it. Emojis. This is the coolest platform I've ever been a part of. Yeah. I'm going to try this. How do you throw an emoji? Oh, celebration. Just going to celebrate this. Everybody, we're going to have a great time today, okay? We're going to talk real deal stuff. If you have not answered the 2 poll questions yet, go ahead and do that. If you'll navigate to the right, you'll see where there's polls. I have 2 poll questions created, and I'll go ahead and throw one of them up on the screen right now. I'll make it a little easier for you. But then there are 2. If you'll go ahead and take the time to do those, that'd be great. This really helps me understand who's here, what you guys need, how I can tailor my message to you. And that's really important, right? We're not going to waste our time. We're going to be here and we're going to talk raw. We're going to be talking real deal stuff. So if you have questions, throw them in the chat box. I will do, or in the Q&A, it doesn't matter which one. We're going to have time at the end to do Q&A. So I will take questions all throughout. Just go ahead and throw them in there. I won't answer them till the very end, but I will answer them at the end. Okay. So it looks like most people are transitioning from their military to civilian or civilian to civilian career. Transition to me means transition, right? It's the same thing. And it doesn't matter what you're transitioning between, to and from, it's still a transition. Okay. I had one guy call me the other day and he said, Brig, I'm sick and tired of teaching junior high school and middle school. I want to go into sales now. I want to finally make some money. I said, cool, man. I have had the same conversation in reverse in the past where people have said to me, gosh, dang it, I'm sick of making money and doing sales. What I would like to do now is serve people and get back into public service. I said, all right. So we have all kinds of people across the board in transition, and it means lots of different things. While we're finishing up, people are still coming in. You're doing the poll questions. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Brig Berthold, and I am originally from Utah. I live now in upstate South Carolina with Jordana, who's graciously hosting this terrific event here. It's actually my second year participating as a speaker. We did a pre-recorded one last year, so I didn't have time for Q&A. But today I am here, and I'm excited about it. I am retired Army. I was medically retired, so I know what that's like. That transition can get complicated with a medical issue, so I got it. I started out in my Army career as a combat engineer. Somehow they decided to disband my unit as soon as I got there, and they promised me it was not my fault. I did not believe them, but I did have to navigate the needs of the Army problem, and I got to choose my follow-on career, which was incredibly lucky. So I went into human intelligence, source operations. I went to language school, and then when I got done doing that, my battalion commander approached me and asked me if I would reclassify to counterintelligence. So that's where I ended my career, counterintelligence. I was deployed once to Afghanistan in 2015, ran counterintelligence operations all throughout Kandahar Airfield and the surrounding area. And that was a lot of fun, super hard. People would ask me, because I deployed like this. I wore a collar and a beard, and I had a shoulder rig on, and everybody's like, man, you must have the coolest job ever. What do you do? I said, I'm in the Army. And they said, no, you are not in the Army. I said, yes, I'm in the Army. Well, how do I get that job? I said, you don't want this job. This job sucks. Like, this is a terrible, terrible, awful job. It's full of smoke and mirrors, and you can't trust anybody, and you don't need that on you. So I understand the transition process. I know exactly how hard it can be. And now what I do is I spend my days building advocacy in the community on behalf of veterans and to honestly get them employed. I was hired by a local veteran service organization here in the upstate of South Carolina called Upstate Warrior Solution. And what we do is wrap around holistic services and support for veterans in our community. I'm going to hide this. So there's our logo. And they hired me to rebuild their employment program kind of from zero and take a different approach. So what I do now is we engage not only on a workforce development side, where we make sure everybody has, those questions I asked you. Do you know what you want to do? Are you qualified for it? Right? Is your resume going to get you into that door, going to get you that interview? Then after that, are you prepared for that interview? How does that feel? You ready? Have you done a panel interview before? Because by the way, that's very hard. And then after that, where's your LinkedIn profile? How does that look? And then let's talk about networking and who knows who you are. So that's the workforce development side of what we do at Upstate Warrior Solution. And if you're transitioning to upstate South Carolina, I want you to put your information in the chat about that so we can reach out to you and get you taken care of. But for those of you who are not in this area and don't plan on coming here, I spend most of my time unifying community partnerships and engaging with corporations to honestly ask them to hire veterans. So what I need, it's a two-way relationship between me and the company and also me and the veterans. What I need from you is a commitment to do the right thing once you get on the job. And we're going to talk today about what I promise companies about hiring veterans and how you can help me and how I'm out there trying to help you. And there are reps like me all over the country trying to support you. And if you need help finding who that person is in your local area, we can find out and get connected to those as well. There's a tremendous support network for employment nationwide, and I know a lot of those folks now. So a little bit about my organization. Our mission is to connect, lead, and inspire. We want to make sure that warriors and their family members are connected to available resources in our community, and that includes opportunities. We want to lead them through the process of self-empowerment. Anybody that's worked with me for too long will learn that, I'm not going to slay the dragon for you, but I'll put the sword in your hand, right? And I'll point, I'll say, there it is. And I'll walk with you to the dragon. And then I'm going to give you a big shove in the back. But at the end of the day, you got to slay the dragon yourself. I can't do it. I can't make sure you brush your teeth when you show up to an interview. I can't make sure your clothes aren't wrinkled. And, that's none of my business. You have to close the deal yourself. So I get to sell people. Honestly, I've sold everything. There can be, all kinds of different things in my life. And I used to sell people up the river, and now I sell people into better opportunities. And it's pretty cool. So connect, lead, and inspire. It's how I live my life all day, every day. We're going to go into some of the background, soft skills, common veteran skills, combat skills, military support roles, values, and how that crosses over to the employment world. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. This is the class I teach companies. Okay. And I'm going to cater it to you as the job seekers, but I thought it was going to be super valuable for you to understand what people like me are telling companies about people like you. So this is one of the classes that I teach, and there's more to it. But let's talk about what soft skills are. Okay. This is the crux, right? Soft skills are more about the behavior and thinking and personal traits, cognitive capabilities, your personal culture, things like that. That's what soft skills mean. Okay. How good a team player you are, how well you communicate, written versus verbal. Those are soft skills. If you come onto a team and you're toxic and you're engaging in gossip and you're backstabbing and whatever, then you probably should have stayed in the intel world, because we don't need you in our corporate culture, right? And that's what companies want. They need somebody who's adaptable. They need somebody who brings, and we'll get into what they actually are, but these soft skills are huge in getting you a job. And we're going to talk later about how to sell that. Okay. Typically, these are very difficult to measure, but also they make you as versatile an employee or a prospective employee as you can possibly be. One of the things that we all know as veterans is how to adapt and overcome. We know how to say, okay, that's not my job, but I'll bet you I know somebody who can help me with that, or I know how to get that done. From the top to the bottom, we know how to accomplish the mission. Okay. And that's what companies are looking for. So when I talk to companies, this is what they tell me. They say, Brig, gosh dang it. You know what we need? We need somebody who's going to show up. They're going to be on time. They're going to be dressed appropriately. They're going to be ready to work, and they're going to be eager to learn and grow. Now, by raise of hands, go ahead and throw some emojis up there. How many of you think that is a ridiculous minimum standard? I do, right? I'm like, holy crap, that's it? That's all you, and these companies, that's all they're asking for. That's all they want. So when I go to the companies, I'm like, wait a minute, you're serious? That's all you need? Yes, Brig. We just need somebody who can show up on time, be ready to work, positive attitude, and good listening skills, and ready to lean into anything we need them to do. And I'm like, baby, that's what we do. You just described a veteran outside of basic training or boot camp or whatever it is. That's all we got, right? You're never going to not get that out of a veteran. So then they're like, okay, cool. But this is what they really want. Okay. That's what they tell me they want. And I understand the workforce is crazy volatile right now. And there's companies that are begging for people, and they're bending over backward with benefits packages and even salary and hourly pay rates and different things are going all over the board right now to make sure that they get the right kind of people in the job. So this is what they actually want. They want somebody who's punctual, obviously. They want somebody who can think critically. They need emotional intelligence on their team. We talked about some of that backstabbing and gossip and all that. Like if we know, we all know how to do that, but we also, as veterans, we know how to not do that and how to not let it affect every single thing that's going on when accomplishing the mission. They want somebody who's creative and adaptable. That's all. I mean, they're desperate for that. They want somebody who can be on a team and has social skills. And then they want somebody who has written and interpersonal communication skills. This is what they really want, but they can't publish this because this is a daunting list. And if you remember, you go all the way back to the very first slide in this class, I talked about how these are hard to measure, right? How are you going to measure critical thinking? Well, I'll tell you a little bit later. How are you going to measure creativity and adaptability? Those are things you talk about in the interview. Okay. Those are why behavioral interview questions are such a big deal. And it's really important that we get those right when they come around, because these are the things, if you look at this list, take a screenshot, whatever you want to do, look at this list. And what I want you to start doing is thinking about when I'm in that interview, they're going to ask me questions about this list, because this is what they actually want to know. Right. So build your interview, hot take, build your interview questions and answers that you're preparing around these soft skills, and you're going to wow people. Okay. All right, let's move on. So let's talk about some common veteran skills. These are the stuff that we bring to the table pretty much every time. Okay. We have a joke for nearly every situation, especially if it's hard. And one of the problems is they're often dark. It can be a little bit hard to handle for the civilian population. How many of us can agree to that? All right. You walk in and you say something just that you look sideways at, like, dude, you can't say that. I'm like, man, sorry. If you're not yet in the civilian workforce, you need to be prepared for that, because that is a legit thing that happens. All right. Next is a common coping mechanism can be, what's the worst that could happen, right? Many of us have been in just awful situations, really bad. We've seen death in many cases. We understand the hardships of true catastrophic scenarios with bullets flying and bombs going off, people betraying us for, and getting out, like in my case, like getting out by the skin of your teeth. So we know how bad it can be, and the civilian workplace largely is not going to be as bad as it can be. And we know what that looks like. And we can literally sleep anywhere, right? Like that's a skill. That's a legit skill, but it's a soft skill. You cannot tell me that this is not valuable, right? Because we know how to recharge a lot. And when you get into the civilian world, you're probably going to forget how to recharge a little bit. Just fair warning for those of you in transition. That self-care is going to kind of go out the window. So keep an eye out for that. But we can literally sleep anywhere. I don't know how you put that on a resume. I haven't figured that out yet. So everybody's seen this picture before? Many of you probably have seen this picture before. This is in the Restrepo story. And this dude, they get in a firefight, and he's ready to rock and roll, man. He's in his boxers and a t-shirt, but he went on full battle rattle and started engaging the enemy. And I bring this up for a very specific reason. Okay. When a company hires a veteran, well, let me back up. The first thing that companies think of when they think of veterans is they think warfighter. And we're going to talk about that. But why they think that is because what they want out of the veteran they're hiring is a warfighter. Right? They don't want a pipe swinging badass who's kicking down a door necessarily, even though we can all do that, right? What they really want is deployment you. Does that make sense? Everybody tracking that? So when you get hired on, you get hired on as, like I got hired to be deployment brig, not sit back and be in garrison brig. That's not who they wanted. They think I'm engaged all the time. I'm ready to fight for the team. I'm ready to shake, rattle, and roll, and I'm on all the time, and I'm hot shot, right? That's what they think of when they think they're going to hire a veteran. But a lot of us, especially those of you who are in transition, you're thinking, oh man, I cannot wait to just I just need to be done for a minute, and I need to slow it down. And you're going to immediately end up at a crossroads if you're going into it with that mentality. Now, I try to interrupt that on my end, and like I said, there's people all over the place who are trying to explain to companies this transition, your mindset coming in, and now I need you to know what their mindset is when they're hiring you. Okay, they are looking for deployment you. They're looking for this guy in his briefs, engaging the enemy at all hands on deck at all times. So it's important to understand what you're capable of before you take a job. You need to ask questions in the interview like, I asked the question, I'm like, are we going to play big kid rules here? Or is this going to be like you're expected to be at your desk from 9 to 5 with a 30-minute lunch break tacked on the end? That's a great question in an interview when somebody says, what questions do you have for us? You ask questions like that because you need to understand the culture of the company you're getting into and what their expectations of you are. But I'm telling you right now, if you don't set that precedent a little bit early, and you can ask that question in different ways, that's just the really brash way to ask it, which is me. But what you can do is ask that question in a bunch of ways. What are my expectations? Is my schedule mine? Am I required to clock in and out? Stuff like that. Because we're not used to clocking in and out, especially if you're in transition. Okay. And I see that many of us on this call are in transition, like at least 5. Okay. So does that make sense? Can I get a high five if everybody agrees? Like they want deployment, they want combat you, and you want to be a garrison employee. So good. Thank you for the thumbs up. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. All right, let's move on. So combat, we all know, is fighting between 2 groups of armed forces, right? And you're engaging in combat. Usually it involves weaponry. So a lot of times what I run into, especially with civilians who have no interaction with military veterans at all, they end up thinking warfighter when they hear veteran. They think this guy with his nods on and his suppressor and all this stuff, this gear. And the truth is that's not most people in the military. Most veterans in transition are not this dude. They just aren't. And that's okay. That's okay. But this is exactly what they think of. Okay. So what I want us to do is to communicate to them that we bring a lot more to the table than this person. And I teach classes about it. And you can also help them understand this. So here are the realities, right? How many of you have seen this person before? Me, I've seen them. I worked with a bunch of those people. Civil affairs, right? Public affairs. Everybody calls it something different. Then you got your flight crew and they're on the flight line, right? How many of us were in these type of support roles, right? A lot of us were. How many of us were in these type of support roles? Now, nothing about these roles is anything less than critical, right? We can't, the military thing, this thing that happens, nothing can happen without people like this. So companies need to understand that they're getting people like this, not the first guy, right? So U.S. Navy helicopter detachment, 2 aircraft require 6 pilots and 20 support crew members. 20. That's a lot of people to put those 2 birds in the air, and they have to do it on a rotation for maintenance and so the pilots can get their naps because pilots need naps. Sorry for any of you that are pilots, but we know you need a nap, and that's okay. But that's a lot of work to, if you look at it in a pyramid scheme, before that bird can get in the air and even fire any ordnance at all, right? Any armament. So, well, we need to help companies understand this, and you need to understand as a job seeker. I submit that as a job seeker, you need to understand that it doesn't matter what you did. They might think of you as a warfighter first, but then you bring so much to the table that has nothing to do with pulling a trigger. Pulling a trigger, people who pull triggers have a harder time transitioning out of the military than people who didn't. It just is a fact. And there are ways around that. If you're a trigger puller, that's okay. We can talk about that, right? Put it in if you got questions, put them in there. But for those of us who are in support roles, you should feel great about that because the support role is what they want at the company level, right? Your civilian employer wants a support guy or gal. That's what they want. Okay. They want support personnel. Because companies' goals are simple. It doesn't matter what company you work for. It doesn't matter what they sell or what services they provide or what, their org chart looks like. Companies tell me all the time, we want to hire veterans. And I say, okay, cool. Well, what does that mean to you? Well, we have an initiative to hire this many veterans over this amount of time. Okay, understandable. And I think that's a noble thing. But who told you to do that? Well, it was the CEO or the CFO or, somebody like that, or corporate headquarters or whatever, right? And I say, okay, all right. Now, if it was the HR person's job, I would never say this. But if it's not the HR person's idea to hire a bunch of veterans, create this initiative, which often the case it's not. And I talk to the HR folks and I say, okay, let's level with each other. You don't care if they're a veteran or not, right? And they'll say, and I'm like, it's okay. You don't have to be uncomfortable. What the person you want to hire for the job is the appropriate candidate for the job. You want somebody who's going to come in, do the job, probably move up, right? Improve their position and move up. And then we're all talking about the bottom line here, right? The company's job is to make money every time. If we're not bringing in enough money, if there's not enough cash flow, then it doesn't matter how awesome we feel about ourselves. It doesn't matter how many veterans we hired. It doesn't matter how many of those are disabled. It doesn't matter how diverse or equitable or inclusive our company is. None of that matters if the company cannot sustain cash flow. It's simple. So all of you who have transitioned, you've probably seen this, and all of you that are in transition, I need to tell you, I hate to break it to you right now, but the transition classes have a difficult time explaining that you are going to be valued for you as a person, not for most of the stuff you ever did in the military. Okay. And I hate to say that, but the sooner you come to terms with that, the better off you're going to be. It kicked me in the pants. When I graduated, when I transitioned out of the military, I went to ONET. Give me a thumbs up if you've gone to ONET and did the interest profiler. Yep. And how many of you found value in that? Go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you found value in the ONET interest profiler. Okay, see? Nobody. And for those of you who haven't done it, go do it because you might get a laugh out of it. It's great. But I got out of counter intel and they said, you know what you should do? You should join the FBI. And I was like, I don't want to join the FBI. They were like, well, what about the CIA? So I want to join the CIA. I just did all that. I don't want to do any of that. And they say, okay, well, how about you go be an investigator, a criminal investigator? You should be a homicide detective, right? I'm reading between the lines here. And I'm like, listen, ONET, I can't go just be a homicide detective. That means I got to go through the academy. I got to spend 8 to 10 years in patrol. Then I got to do a stint with K9, and then they're going to make me feel bad because I'm incapable of going SWAT. So I'm going to go back on patrol for however long. And then if I'm lucky, I'll get an opportunity to test into a criminal investigation role, right? And by then I'm 15 years in, 12 at the minimum, okay? So ONET, that's what ONET did for me, all right? And I only bring that up to say that between your transition classes that are telling you, man, you're so cool, the civilian world's going to be so excited to see you, you have a top secret security clearance, and you've done some cool stuff, and nobody ever has done, blah, 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 and all that rah-rah stuff, okay? All of that is true. You do have a clearance, probably, right? And that clearance sets you apart, right? You can put that on your resume. You're capable of holding and maintaining or earning and maintaining a secret or top secret security clearance with special accesses and stuff like that, which ultimately is a soft skill because it almost never will that apply to the civilian world. Not never, but almost never. And what you're going to be able to do is flip that bullet point around on your resume and say, I am trustworthy, right? I am trustworthy. I'm loyal. You can spin it in those ways. Does that make sense? Okay, so the transition classes are telling you you're awesome, and you are awesome, but also nobody cares what you did in the military. They care what you learned in the military and what you're able to do with it now. So you have to think about this transition process with these soft skills. You have to think about them as the leg up, right? Those hard skills you learn might be a direct translation, but the soft skills are what's going to get you a job and especially going to help you keep that job. Okay. So these are the military values. If you're Army, give me a thumbs up if you're Army. What? Oh, okay. So we got some Army. Do we have any Navy? Any Navy? Give me thumbs up if you're Navy. Well, okay, got one Navy. How many Air Force? Got some Air Force. Okay, the Marines. Did you anticipate that question was coming? Marine Corps. They're not here. No Marines. Good. Well, then we can make fun of them while they're gone. And then Coasties. We got any Coast Guard here? Okay, no Coasties. Got it. Cool. That helps. So anyway, let me go back. These are the values that we were taught, right? These are the values we obtained in the military in our time in service, right? You can see they're not complicated. They're very simple, but you can put these on your resume. Okay. These are soft skills that translate over to the civilian workplace. This is what companies want to see. They want to know that you have courage. They want to know you're committed. They want to know that you strive for excellence, right? Everybody who's been around the Air Force for 3 minutes knows that excellence is at the top of their priority list, right? They have excellent food, excellent billeting, excellent everything. Everything's excellent. That's just what they do. And it comes through. Okay. Right. You can see excellence is not listed in the Marine Corps nor in the Army's core values. Like it's just not there. Right. We are good at what we do. We love each other. And that's it. Just kidding. I'm poking fun. But it's true. Like that culture, and this is culture. These cultural values they're baked into you now. Even if you hated your military service, and that happens, even if you get in that transition class, you're sitting at the back and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to be here. Forget this. This is dumb, right? I cannot believe I'm getting out of the military. Give me a thumbs up if you did not want to leave the military or you're in that transition process and it was not your choice. That's me. That's me. I did not want to get out of the military, right? I was medically retired. It was not my fault, right? And that's okay. It's okay that you're in that situation, and it's okay that it sucks. We can acknowledge that, right? How many of you are getting out or did get out and it was your choice? Give a thumbs up if it was your choice. There we go. Got some thumbs up. Okay. I'm telling you, of those of you that it was your choice, there are two types of people who choose to get out of the military, right? Either, wow, this was great and I got what I needed out of it, or, oh my gosh, I'm so angry, I'm going to die. That's it. There's no in between. If you're choosing to leave the military, it's either on good terms or it's on very bad terms. Okay. So in the transition classes, you get these different personalities. And it doesn't matter how you leave the military, under what circumstances. It doesn't matter if you're super angry or if you're bitter. And it's okay if you are for a minute, but only for a minute. These core values are what companies are looking for. And you are bringing those in spades to the table. Okay. Do not lose track of these. Do not forget that you have what it takes to embody these core values, because they are valuable on the civilian world and civilian workplace. So let's go through it. We all know how this happened. How did we obtain those values? How? Right? This is what companies ask me all the time. I show them that slide first to explain to them that, we got the goods, man. We got what you're looking for. And they say, oh man, that's great. How does the military do that? Right? How do you take somebody even in a couple of years and give them those core values? And I say, okay, well, let me show you. This is exactly what it looks like. This is how the Army does it. Right? This is how the Marine Corps does it. This is what it looks like in the Navy. This is what it looks like in the Coast Guard. And this is what it looks like in the Air Force. This is how they obtain their core values. This is how it goes. Okay? And I get giggles and everything, but it's legit, right? I saw somebody throw up the sunglasses emoji there. And see, there's that excellence. You're like, man, yeah, you're right. We did it with a book. We don't need to get yelled at. It's okay. It's okay. That's the right place for you to be, man. It's the right place. All right. I needed to get yelled at. If I wasn't getting yelled at, it wasn't going to work. All right. But we all bring these abilities to withstand and be resilient to the table. So then I show employers this slide and I say, look, here in the United States Army, when I was in service, this is a non-commissioned officer's evaluation report. This is what I am all the time graded against. These are the standards that I am regularly faced with, and my superiors are gonna evaluate me on, right? And I show them, I say, look, just look at block A. They're going to evaluate my character very first. The first thing they're going to look at is my character. Right? Am I capable of significant contributions to the team? Right? If so, list them. Right? Any major performance outcomes or performance issues would all go here. Okay. Then there's the military bearing. And in the Army, we do height, weight, and all that. So you get your military bearing. This is not my NCOER, by the way. I know some of you are reading this a little too closely, wondering if Staff Sergeant Berthold was pretty cool. But no, I wasn't that cool. This person's way better than me. That's why I chose it. So indicate major performance objectives. Like we said, we talked about that. We got intellect. Intellect is on there. They want to know that we can learn. They want to know that we're capable of adapting and navigating newness is a big deal, especially if you're going to move into the technology field. Anything to do with tech, you need to be able to indicate in an interview and preferably on a resume that you can learn anything and that you've done it a lot. That's one of the soft skills that goes tapped, that gets under evaluated when you're in your job search process is your ability to learn anything. Do not undervalue that, and find a way to plug it in, because if you're in an interview and they'll say, tell me about a time where you were struggling with a task, but you absolutely had to complete it. How many schools did you go to, right? How many of them were a week long or 2 weeks long? And they're these rapidly accelerated courses with all this super technical stuff. And by the way, if you don't nail it, everybody dies, right? Like you're now the person, right? If you're combat lifesaver qualified, it's the easiest answer in the world in an interview, because everybody on the civilian side understands the medical world, at least a little bit, especially now after the pandemic. Everybody has some medical terminology in the back pocket. Everybody. And they have a frame of reference. So if you were ever combat lifesaver certified, just Joe Schmo, Private Joe Snuffy, you can always say, yeah. And if about a 1 week time, I learned how to save somebody's life and get them to a more appropriate medical care. And I had this long to do it. And it was very hard. And we went through really technical stuff, like putting the nasal pharyngeal airway in, or administering an IV, or I can do phlebotomy on the fly. That's a big deal. Okay. So I hope everybody understands that your ability to learn and grow and adapt, even when it's not in your job description, is a major soft skill. And that kind of stuff is going to go on your evaluation report, right? So let's go over to D. The leadership block on this one says that we are capable of being in charge. And anywhere you serve, I don't care what branch you're in, does not matter to me. You have the ability to lead until the mission is completed. That's what sets the U.S. military apart from a lot of other militaries in the world, is that we empower everybody from the top down to be able to be capable of at least getting home, right? At least being able to pop smoke and get out of there if you absolutely have to, whether it's you or, by yourself or whatever, right? And sometimes that's in the motor pool. Sometimes that's with IT. Sometimes all you got to do is pick up the phone and say, sir, this is not going to work. Ma'am, we can't do it. And you have to have the courage to lead yourself through that, right? And lead your team through that, even though it's going to be difficult. So even if you're not in a battlefield environment and literally popping smoke to create a concealment environment where you can get out of there, it doesn't matter. There's plenty of ways that you were in a leadership role or were trained in leadership roles. You're capable of a lot more than you think. Now, that was my transition awareness blurb, right? Or my transition assistance blurb. That's the same thing they tell you in your TAP classes or whatever they call it these days. Okay. Caveat to that is you cannot beat the leadership one too hard, depending on the job you're seeking. Okay. If you're looking at middle management, upper management, if you're going to be in a managerial or leadership role within a company and that's what you're applying for, then you need to be able to speak to this intelligently. If you're going to be on the ground, entry level position, you're working on a line or something like that, you need to be able to answer questions about leadership, but don't push it too hard, because they're not hiring you right now to take over somebody else's job. And that person, the person directly above you that you want to move into their position, they might be the one interviewing you and making the hiring decision. So be careful how you approach this and make sure it's appropriate for the job that you're looking for. Okay. This is a soft skill, but it can bite you in the butt if you're not careful. Okay. Not that it's not true about you, just that maybe you want to soften this one up a little bit in an interview. Okay. All right. The development stuff is great. We talked about learning and selfless service and all that stuff. But F is my favorite block on this old NCOER. And it's my favorite one to share with companies, because this is where it matters. This is where the rubber meets the road. Gets results. That's all it says. Achieves, gets results. And that's what companies want to hear. So if you want to go back, excuse me, and look at your old evaluation reports, go through this before an interview and just say, even if all this does for you is say, man, I do get results. That's it. That's worth its weight in gold on your way into the interview. Okay. I get results. Companies want people who can come in, do their job that they've been asked to do, ready to learn, like we talked about. And when there's a problem, they want somebody who can creatively solve that problem and is at least willing to, right? We get results. We get up against a deadline. Yeah, I'm going to come in a little bit later or a little bit earlier. I'm going to stay a little bit later. Okay. They want that. They're desperate for that. And you can talk about all this in an interview. All right, we're moving fast. Are we all doing good? We'll shake this off. We're almost done. Okay, so if you need to get up and shake it out a little bit, you can. But here's what we're going to talk about. The military is a microcosm of society. And I talk to companies about this all the time. A lot of companies think, oh man, veterans are so cool and they're the best of society and they, selflessly served our country and all that. And yeah, some of that's super duper true. But guess what? We got dirtbags too, right? We got people in the military that are not Wonder Woman and Captain America. We got all kinds of crap in the military. Not saying any of you in this room are. Well, you wouldn't be here if you were. But companies think, oh man, they are going to be the best hiring decision we've ever made. And I help them make the best hiring decision possible, right? My job is to make sure that they don't hire the wrong person as much as hiring the right person. Okay. So I explain this to companies. This in the middle is meets the standard. The top of that diamond is those of us that exceed the standard, which I believe most of us on this call are, if not all of us. Fails to meet the standards at the bottom of that diamond, right? And then my favorite part is the Midas man. How many of you heard that term before? The Midas man. Give me a thumbs up if you ever heard the term the Midas man. It's old school. It's an old school term. But the Midas man's our favorite person. The favorite person ever. That person is sitting at the bottom of that triangle, and he's making us all look really good. That's why they got the golden touch, right? The Midas man. He's just holding everybody above that lowest person who's the dirtbag of the unit. Everybody else above that person, whew, we look good compared to that person. Okay, so don't be this guy or gal. This is not who you want to be, all right? What you want to be is at that dotted line or better. So when I send referrals to companies, that's my target. I don't send them anybody that I think is below that dotted line. And when I say that dotted line, this diamond starts to take shape differently based on the company you're hiring, you're interviewing with, right? So you need to understand what this diamond looks like. What is minimum standard? Okay, if you got another veteran that works at that company, reach out to them and ask, what's the minimum standard, man? Like if I show up in a polo and jeans on a Friday, is that going to be a problem? It's a great question to ask, And a veteran who works there that you should find on LinkedIn, by the way, I'm stomping my foot, but you can't hear it. Okay, go on LinkedIn, find another veteran that works at that company, make a connection, and then ask these kind of informational interview questions. Because another veteran, you don't have to prove yourself to them. They got it, right? Unless you come off like the Midas man, but I don't think you will. So these are what companies are looking for. Now that dotted line is going to change depending on the role in the company and everything like that. You just got to find out how to be above it. Okay. All right. So in conclusion, you as the veteran, you already possess all of the soft skills the companies are looking for. All of them. Right? We went through the minimum standard. Show up on time, dress for success, ready to work, positive attitude, no gossip, etc. Right? But don't screw it up is I guess my next piece of advice. Like you got it. You're good. Don't prove me wrong. So I'm going out there and I'm making it known that you're freaking awesome. And I want your help to be right. Okay? Because if you go in and you screw it up and you don't handle it appropriately, then it's going to make it harder for me to help another vet get a job. And it's going to be harder for that company to justify hiring another veteran. And that's the last thing we want. So we are still in a community together. We all still carry that veteran tag. And it's a great tag. It's a great tag to have. It's going to open a lot of doors for you, but only if you handle it the right way. If you don't, you're going to make it harder on the rest of us. Okay? Tracking that? I know it's kind of a hard thing to end on, but you're awesome. You're super awesome. You can do any damn thing, anything you want. You can learn anything. You can wow anybody. You can be above that line every single day that you're on the job because of those soft skills you bring to the table. But you got to be that person. Okay. Don't just sell it. Don't just be that person in the interview and then screw it up later because you're awesome and you can do anything. So, all right, we're going to jump into the questions. Let's see. Let's do this. Brad Morgan. Brad, do disabled veterans need to approach job search differently? Absolutely not most of the time. It depends on your disability, okay? There are disability advocacy groups all over the place. 50% of the job seekers that come through my system have a disability of one kind or another. 50%. And I am super duper disabled, right? So I totally understand what that's about. I get what that's like. And that's why I'm on all these advocacy groups in the community to make sure they're thinking of veterans as, disabled, as differently abled. But also, I don't want you to walk into an interview feeling like you're disabled, right? I want you to walk into an interview feeling like you're totally capable of nailing that. So if there's an accessibility issue, your real question is, I would say the real answer to your question is, do I want to work for that company if they cannot accommodate my disability? That's the real question. And if you go into your job search with that in mind, say you need wheelchair access. I don't know your situation, but you might need wheelchair access, or you might need to work remotely because you have a family situation. And that might be part of your abilities, right? And it doesn't have to be a physical disability. You need to look for companies whose culture will accommodate whatever it is your situation is. And that's where we're going to go back to LinkedIn. We're going to find other veterans that work at that company, and we're going to email them and ask, hey, how inclusive are they, right? How accessible are they? How much emphasis or accommodation do they put on making it comfortable and available for me to work there? Here's my situation, and in most of our cases, we didn't choose our disability, right? It's not our fault. It's not our fault. It's not my fault I was medically retired. It's okay though. It just is about me. And I don't want to work for a company that's not gonna help me accommodate that. But I also don't want to be the guy who works for that company and demands accommodation. So to avoid confrontation, I would adjust your job search only to make sure that companies are accessible. I hope that answers your question. Okay. Let's see. Anwar, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Anwar, how do you explain to civilian companies that you do not want to be switched on all the time when transitioning to corporate America? That's a great thing. Great question. I would address this with other veterans in the company. This is all company culture stuff. Look, let me explain something to you. I'm going to answer your question. But here's what I say. I tell people there are 4 points of critique that you want to look at companies before you're jumping into a job. Okay. The first is company culture. Well, the third is company culture. The first is, do I like who I get to be when I'm on the job? Do you think you're going to like the person you get to be, the opportunities that will present yourself? Like, okay, I like teaching classes, right? I like speaking publicly. That's one of the things I like to do. The job I have right now allows me to do that, right? I'm on the job right now. So I like who I get to be doing this with you right now. Step 1. Step 2, do you like who you get to be out of work because of the person you are at work? That's a huge question, and it's very, very hard to answer. So if you're always taking work home, like my wife, she used to be a grade school teacher. She was always bringing home work, always grading papers, always evaluating tests and all that stuff. It's like, man, she hated who she got to be at home because of the job that she had. That's a great way to look at it. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3 is the company culture. That would be things like, how accessible is it? Are they going to demand, like I had a commander once demand that my butt was in that chair 10 hours a day, 4 days a week, because that's what the taxpayers were expecting. And otherwise, I was defrauding the government if I wasn't at my desk, in my chair, ready to receive a phone call for 10 hours a day, 4 days a week. Now, I don't play that game anymore. So every time I've looked for a job since then, I ask that question. I'm like, we're going to play big kid rules here? And then I tell them a brief portion of that story. And then I get my answer. And if they say, no, really important that you're at your desk all day long, like, I can't do that. I say, thank you very much for the opportunity. And I go look for something else. Okay. So that's 3 is culture. Stuff like that is huge. Another question you might ask a veteran when you're on LinkedIn is like, how accessible is alcohol on the job? A lot of us deal with substance abuse. A lot of us have, trauma that we're trying to run from. And a lot of it, if you get into an environment where everybody's got liquor in their desk drawer, it might not be the best place for you to be. You're going to take that home with you. So be careful with stuff like that. That's culture stuff. That's the third one. Okay. And those questions you can get to the heart of asking another veteran saying, hey, I'm looking at applying for a job with your company. I have some questions for you. Would you mind sitting down, having a cup of coffee? Or, if you're not in person, then you can do it online. That's what LinkedIn's for. Okay. Then the fourth thing I tell people to evaluate is pay. The full compensation review is number 4. So that's where it goes. And if you're getting retirement money, or if you've got disability pay coming through, or whatever it is, then all that gets factored in. If you have TRICARE for life because you're retired, medical retired, or whatever, if you're TRICARE for life, you can go into that company and say, your healthcare package doesn't really, I don't need that. So can we talk about different ways to increase my compensation package in creative ways. Could you pay for mileage? Can you supply me with a company cell phone? Can you whatever? Who knows? Right? Whatever cultural things you need in your own personal life, or whatever gaps you might need to fill. Maybe you want to ask for $5,000 a month. You take, extra, or even a couple $100. Whatever their benefits package is, that's a great example of how you can negotiate your way up. Okay. Do you like who you get to be on the job? Do you like who you get to be at home because of the job? Do you like the company culture there? And is it conducive to what you need? And how much you're going to get paid? Okay. So Anwar, to answer your question all the way, I hope that answered most of it. And I got a little tangential there, but basically what I'm telling you to do is to address it with a veteran before you go into that interview, if possible. And based on that information, or if you were unable to get that information from another veteran that works there, which happens all the time, then you go into that interview with that ready to go. Okay. Like, what are you expecting? Expectation management is huge. All right. So let's see. Zalia. Hope I said that right. Zalia. Oh, you're at NGB. Oh, great. I almost got a job there once. Do you think choosing not to disclose your disability status hurts your chances in getting a job? No. I think that's private. That's up to you. If you really feel like well, first of all, if it's super obvious what your disability is, you got to be upfront about it, right? If it's super private and something you're dealing with and you're fully capable of dealing with, then it's none of their business. That's what I say. But if you think there's any reason they would need to accommodate you in any way, then I would find a way to tactfully navigate that as early as possible, but not too early. You don't want to give companies a reason to discount you. You don't want to give them a reason to say no, right? Especially if it's a job you really want. And if you're applying for it, hopefully you really want that job. So I would say be careful of the ways, or of giving them reasons to turn you away. But if you're like number one, number two candidate on the list, which they'll never tell you, but if you feel like you have a good solid shot at it and you're at the second interview or maybe even the third interview, you could bring it up. Just try to be really careful that you're not being disingenuous. You're not lying to them, because then you're gonna burn bridges. But if you think, the best answer I would give is, if you think they need to accommodate that for whatever reason, be upfront. I'll give you a personal example. When I got hired on with the company I'm at now, my wife had cancer, and I was really upfront with them. I said, look, I feel like I'm the guy for the job. I feel like I can do everything you need me to do. I feel like what you're asking me to do is reasonable, and I'm ready to do it. I'm excited, but I have this thing that's going to get in the way a little bit. I have some scheduling stuff that's going to come up. I got to drop everything, go to a doctor's office. Sometimes in the middle of the day at the drop of a hat. But this is what I do. I said, but I promise you, I will move the needle. I promise you, the work will get done. It just might look like this, right? It's not a sweeping time hand like on a Rolex, right? I don't move the needle like this, like some people do. My needle moves like this. And you can find better ways to say it than that. That's just my really casual, me and you talking way of saying it. But I think it's important that if something is truly needs to be accommodated, that you're upfront with it. Okay. Does that answer your question? Give me thumbs up if I've got all your questions answered. Okay, I'm going to go back through the chats. I went through all three questions. There's only three. I want to go through the chat really quick and just see. Yeah, embrace the suck is right. Thanks, Anwar. Takara, you hit 20 years. Takara, are you getting hooked up with all your benefits? If you're not already, you need to check out the VA. You got to get hooked up with the VA. You got to get hooked up with disability pay compensation, and you need to get your retirement secured. That's two different pots of money. They don't touch each other. They don't talk. Okay. So you got to get all that. Good. You said yes, sir. Okay. Awesome. Oh yeah. Very angry men with brim hats. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was. The campaign hat. I noticed that a lot of employers have a section on the application asking that question. Which question, Zalia? This was your 1 minute ago. Are you talking about the disability? Okay, thanks, Jordana. Yeah, I mean, it does come up, right? And that will tell you a lot about their company culture. If they are preempting that if they're saying, hey, tell us about yourself to this degree, that, that tells you a lot about that company, and it's worth exploring. So, maybe you could call the HR department and say, hey, I'm about ready to interview with you guys, but this was on your resume or you're on your application. And I would like to discuss, what does that mean? Has that been a problem in the past? Has it been, are there things that you're unwilling to accommodate? And they have to answer questions like that. And if they don't, if they're shifty, then you want to work there anyway. But they have to answer questions about what it is that they are and are unwilling or unable to accommodate. And then you don't have to answer anything. You do not have to tell them anything about your disability. That disclosure is up to you. In fact, they are legally obligated, it is illegal for them to ask you a bunch of questions that are personal to a disability or to accommodation needs, and they cannot legally discriminate against you for that reason. So some people think that it's better to wait for the interview because then you're actually considered a candidate. But if already in the application process you're thinking, now wait a minute, that's a little strange, what's the deal there? And you're already, to me that would be like, I've already turned my foot away from that job. I haven't stepped away, I've just turned my feet. Then it's maybe worth a phone call to say, hey, what's the reason for this question? It's things like that. So I hope that answers your question. Any other questions? Big takeaway, you got it all. You can do anything. You really can do anything, right? And that's not rah-rah transition class stuff. That's legit. That's what I sell companies on all the time. You just got to sell it. You just got to follow through on the promises that we're all making, okay? And it's a promise to yourself, right? Because you're going to get the job that you want because you're capable and qualified for it, okay? The end. Jordana, do you have anything you want to jump in and say or ask or anything like that? We got Ron on us here today. I don't know.
I'm good. I think you have said everything that needs to be said. So thank you so much for coming out and talking with us today.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for being here. Thanks for having me, and thanks for all the people participating in this conversation. I mean, we're just here to help you. So if you need anything, let us know. I'll go ahead and jump into. I'll put my stuff in the chat right now. If you want to talk or if you have questions or anything, look me up on LinkedIn. Brig Berthold on LinkedIn and just say, hey, I was in Kandahar in 15. Just look me up on LinkedIn and say, hey, saw you at the Vet Summit or whatever. I'll know who you are at that point.
Yep, you can also find him if you go to the People tab, you can find his profile there, and it should have some contact information there as well. So
yeah, okay, great. That's even better.
Magic.
Magic.
Well, awesome. We've got speed networking coming up next. So, Brig, thank you so much once again for playing into my web and talking with the crew here today. I really, really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for putting this on. It's always awesome.